So today I want to talk about responsibility and about 3 different experiences or levels or stages of responsibility and what that means. And all of these are in the context of our practice. So I'm not just talking about this in general. I'm talking about this in relationship to our spiritual practice, in relationship to anyone's desire to wake up. So the first level of responsibility, you could say, is a relatively gross level of responsibility. It's the building block, the seat of all other responsibility. And that's taking care of the fundamentals of life. You know, we don't, even a person in India who's going to be a wandering mendicant has to get a begging bowl. There are certain things that you have to take care of in order to do practice, no matter what, even if it's just like, you know, getting a loincloth and finding a skull and a walking stick. There are things that you have to do in order to be able to do your practice. So in our culture, what are those things? Well, they're, you know, somewhat different for every person. Some of us have families, some of us don't. Some of us have one kind of a job or another. Some of us like to live in one way or another kind of way. But basically, we need to have income and a place to park our meditation cushion and altar. And we need to be relatively free from worry about the fundamentals of life. If our whole consciousness is taken up with worry about the fundamentals of life, it's very, very difficult to, not to practice. You can still practice, but it's difficult to sort of sink into it in the best possible way. So there are many people who get stopped right there. There's confusion, there's fixation, there's a feeling of helplessness, or there's a feeling of huge attachment to those responsibilities of everyday life. Either way, it can either be that you don't know how to put together those fundamentals. It could be that you are really super great at putting together those fundamentals, but you're so attached to them that you never really get too far into your practice. There's always something else that you have to skillfully accomplish in that gross sense, you know, bigger house, more money, better job, more travel, your bucket list is getting in the way of your spiritual practice, you know, whatever it is. And then there are people who also feel it's somebody else's responsibility. They're waiting for someone else to save them, you know, from these ordinary trials and tribulations. There's some people that will be able to take responsibility in a good way. And when I say a good way, there's not one that doesn't look any particular way. When I say a good way, I mean whatever is best for that person, given how they want to practice and conduct their life, and what they want to commit to in terms of their spiritual practice. That's what I mean when I say good. So it's not going to look the same way for everybody, but everybody has to have whatever it is for you, a habitable life on a very, very basic level. So we need to take care of those fundamentals. Taking care of our health, taking care of our living space, taking care of not, if we want to be on this path in a certain way, it's very difficult to work a 40-hour-a-week job, right? And we have certain inhibitions. You know, you get into a job and then you're so scared about trying something new that you just stay in a job that's sapping you of all your energy for years on end. So these are just people's regular fixations. I mean, there's nothing unusual about any of this. This is, you know, 75% of people. And this is what we're working with. We're working with some of us on that level. We're working with our practice, those obstacles that we feel, attachments and restraints, attachment to comfort, attachment to a certain limited sphere of activity, our own sense of our limitation, not being able to step outside of a box to arrange our lives how we really want it to be, lack of imagination. I mean, there's all different kinds of things that can happen. But when we're at that level of working with the responsibility, that is our practice. That becomes integrated, if you're working with someone like me, that becomes integrated into your spiritual path. So for instance, if that's where you're working at, or any particular person is, then a lot of your conversations that you're going to have with me are going to be about that stuff. It's not going to be about some esoteric mantra or Kundalini yoga, or it's going to be about your job, and it's going to be about how to write a resume. And it may seem funny, but I spend a lot of time talking to people about those very basic things, because that's where, if you're working at that level of responsibility, that's where your fixations, your karmas are showing up. And those are the fears and the limitations and the attachments that you're working with. The very first step of any level of responsibility is understanding that you are responsible. You didn't create yourself. In an ordinary way, you did not create yourself. You're not at fault for any way that you're showing up. You're not at fault for your fixations and your limited ways of thinking. Those are all fine. Those are all the colors on the canvas of essence nature. But when we're talking on the level where we still feel like we have to do practice and we're on a path and we have problems and we have to resolve things and we have karma, when we're still in that mode of life, then the number one bottom line is we have to understand I am responsible for creating a habitable life for myself. And if you get help along the way, which you inevitably will, that's wonderful. Another part of creating a habitable life is being able to ask for help on every level. We all need help all the way along the way. However, if you're going to have a satisfying life, especially as a practitioner, you're going to have a kind of work person-like, practical, get-to-work attitude towards these problems that are arising, or these limitations or restrictions that are arising. You're going to have a very work person-like relationship to your own feelings of helplessness, your own feelings of attachment, whatever comes up for you, your own people. I often tell people, you're being an ordinary mind. You're being too ordinary. We get stuck in extremely ordinary ways of thinking that we inherited from God knows where, right? We take ourselves extremely seriously. We take our problems extremely seriously. We take our limitations extremely seriously. And then we use our limitations to give us an excuse to remain limited. And this is how ordinary mind works. We're just thinking about things in too rationalistic, culturalistic ways, rather than thinking, if this is your case, maybe this isn't, everybody's case, that even people that I'm talking to right now, but if your case is that you've recognized that your life is about waking up, and to whatever extent that you're able to, then you need to organize your decisions and your efforts around that. And it gets down to very nitty-gritty stuff. Once you decide my life is about waking up, that doesn't mean you're suddenly on a pink cloud on top of a mountain and all your problems have gone away. No, your problems have only begun. You have to then organize things. And as I gave a talk about some time ago, that as Tantrikas, we are going to have a very positive, how can I make this work attitude. Yes, we have fixations that want to drag us down. Yes, we have negativity that wants to drag us down. Yes, we have feelings of helplessness. And yes, we are incapable in lots of ways. That's the truth. But whatever it is, however we're showing up, we are going to work with that. That's what being responsible means. At this level, it means we're going to work with it. We aren't going to just throw up our hands and say, I can't. I have to, or make excuses for ourselves. We're going to recognize that everything is that play of limitation that's creating all this variety in life, and we've just, landed with this particular package, and we are going to work with however we're showing up. This is really the bottom line. And sometimes it's just like, you have your little pick, and you're just like chipping away, one particle at a time. And other times it's like walls are crumbling down. It's all of those things. So the second, I'll read something that Ma said, if I can find it. She said, a person who does not, for the love of God and with a cheerful heart, discharge himself of whatever responsibility may fall to his lot at any time, will find life excessively burdensome and never be able to accomplish anything.
Could you read that again?
Yeah.
A person who does not, for the love of God, and we could say for the love of sadhana, for the love of waking up, for the desire to wake up, a person who does not act responsibly, understanding this longing to wake up, and who does not do it with a cheerful heart. A cheerful heart meaning this can-do kind of an attitude, that you're having a work person-like attitude towards your life. It's just, everything can be worked with. This is something you have to understand. There is no hopeless situation. Everything can be worked with. And our job as tantrikas is to find a way to work with whatever circumstance we happen to be in. No matter how limited our choices are, there's always something we can do to move forward toward waking up in any particular situation. There's always something we can do. It may be something very small, but if that's what's called for in that moment, that's what we do. And we do it with an understanding that we're doing our best. And that's all that we can do. But we're not doing it with a lot of negativity and passivity or feeling like we're going to conquer the world. We're really just looking at what's right there, what needs to be done in order to realize our love of God and our love of self, our desire to wake up, our longing to connect. We are organizing our lives around that, and we are being practical. And we are not beating ourselves over the head if what we're working with seems insignificant compared to what somebody else is working with. Oh, somebody else is doing Sri Vidya practice, and I'm learning how to balance my checkbook. If you came into this world and not balancing your checkbook is an obstacle for your spiritual practice, then balancing your checkbook is what you need to learn. That's the highest sadhana for you in that moment. So you really want to throw out any comparisons or any idea of what anybody else is doing, because if you don't work with what you need to work with, then you won't realize. You will have a burdensome life. You will always be looking elsewhere instead of where you need to look, and your life will become more entangled in karma. So the cleanest, clearest, fastest way to whatever you can achieve in your life, in this particular lifetime, is to work in a practical way with what's right in front of you, whatever that may be, and it's going to be different for every person. So Ma says, a person who does not, for the love of God and with a cheerful heart, discharge himself of whatever responsibility may fall to his lot at any time will find life excessively burdensome and will never be able to accomplish anything. You cannot realize if you are not sitting in your own place, standing on your own ground, working with your own karmas. So comparing and contrasting, wishing, hoping, waiting, all of these things will get you absolutely nowhere. However, taking up your little hammer and your little saw and your little pickaxe, your little shovel, your little pen, whatever it is that you need, right? Your little sponge, whatever it is that you need, taking that up and with a craft person's like attitude, going day by day, picking away at what you need to pick away at, then you will make enormous strides and your life will not be burdensome and doors will open and the way will become clearer and clearer as you go along. So I like to say to myself, because I've had a tendency in my life to always try to do things in a big way, keep your head down. Just keep your head down, right? Keep it out of the clouds. Keep it out of other people's business. Right? Keep your head down and work on what you need to work on. That is the only way to be responsible and progress and not live a burdensome life. If you are always looking elsewhere or if you're always bemoaning your fate or bragging, either way, bemoaning or bragging, neither of them gives a good result, right? Just flip sides of each other. So if you do that, you'll never get to work on what you actually need to work on. And all of those karmas are going to just still be there.
Keep your head down and work on
what finally come out of your file.
That is the only
all of those things that
be
you were avoiding with negative thinking or grandiose thinking or wishing or hoping someone else would take care of it, hoping I will take care of it, throwing yourself at the teacher's feet and save me, waiting for the right guy or gal to come along to save you. Whatever it is that you're waiting for or distracting yourself with, when you come out of it, all of those karmas are still going to be there. So you might as well just get to it, what you need to work on. So the second level of responsibility has to do with your spiritual practice itself. This is about how to have a habitable life. Right. The second level is about your spiritual practice. And even though most of you who are listening are working with me, you have a teacher, even though you have a tradition, even though you have a path, even though certain things are laid out for you and you're encouraged to rely on me and rely on your community and do this thing called surrender. Despite all of that, it is still your journey. And no one else is actually walking it with you. So you're being accompanied in a way. You're being supported in a way. But it's like, swimming lessons. The swimming teacher cannot swim for you. There comes that moment, if any of you remember learning to swim, when you actually just have to swim, right? And then you're swimming around and, your parents are going, good job, as we do these days. And your swimming teacher is applauding you and all your friends are happy you can finally swim. But there you are, you're swimming. You're in the water by yourself, swimming on your own. And this is actually spiritual practice. You are swimming on your own. And you have to be true to that. You have to have integrity in that process. Again, understanding that no one can make you do anything. And if you think someone is, demanding that you do something, there's some people in the Kula who seem to feel that one of the primary reasons they're doing spiritual practice is because I require it or I tell them to. This is utter bullshit. And if you're one of those people, you're just cheating yourself of your own wisdom and your own determination, and of that feeling of standing on your own ground and being responsible for your own process of enlightenment. Because it's not true. Nobody does this because someone else tells them to. You may want things out of this that are based on your fixations. So, the teacher might say, do this practice, and then you do it because you want the teacher to like you. Right? And that's why you're doing it. But that's your reason. You are self-motivated in wanting the teacher to like you. You may do it because you like the community and there's someone you have a crush on and you want to keep coming to teachings. But that you're still being self-motivated, even though the karmas are, rampant. There's no sense in which anybody but you and your karmas are making you do anything. And the sooner that you realize that, the more you can take a big breath of fresh air and look around and feel maybe some excitement about the fact that you actually are on your own journey, on your own spiritual journey of waking up. It's actually exciting to realize that, yes, you have help, yes, you have teacher. The people, I wrote to somebody the other week, I can't remember what the context was, but somebody wrote me, they weren't ready to make a commitment to me because they weren't ready to give up their freedom. And I said, that's a misunderstanding, because some people, their commitment to me is the result of their freedom. They are making that choice out of their freedom, of their natural freedom. I said, that's not true for you. You're just not, that's not how you feel. That's fine. For you, your freedom lies elsewhere. That's totally fine. But there is no dichotomy between commitment and freedom, not when you're working with a teacher. So that that it's the right relationship and that alchemy is working in the right way. You're actually choosing to do it out of your freedom. You're surrendering out of freedom. You're not surrendering out of some terrible limitation that you're expressing. So even the things that we might think we're being forced into, this is just a way of evading our responsibility for our own path. It's someone else's job to enlighten me, and it's someone else's fault that I have to do practice. And the truth is none of that. The truth is that you are making choices all along the way for whatever reason. And when you realize that, you will have a much stronger, more empowered relationship to your spiritual practice, which is what I want. I want everyone to have an empowered relationship to their own practice, where we are working closely together if that's appropriate, and all that alchemy is happening, but you are then swimming, you are being the swimmer. You are being the swimmer. Some people have that relationship to deities too, like, the deity's going to save them, or other teachers are going to save them. I used to be very attached to lots of different teachers, and I think part of the reason was not really thinking they would save me, but just kind of an unhealthy attachment to being important and having all these teachers. So there's all kinds of things that can happen, but the sooner that you can realize that you are actually walking your own path and you're getting help, and whatever surrender or commitment you feel is part of that, but it's part of your freedom. It's part of being responsible, and you are making those choices. And the most subtle level of responsibility could be understood by looking at the word responsibility itself. And it has two parts, response and ability. So when we are really at a more subtle level of responsibility, we are able to respond. We are able to sense very subtle communications and respond with ability. We also have the desire to respond in a way that's skillful and takes in the biggest view possible. So most of us start out, we're just struggling to even be responsible for ourselves. We can't even think of anybody else, right? But as we subtleize our experience, we start to naturally include a bigger situation in our idea of what being responsible means. And other people begin to enter into our frame of reference as to what it is to have skillful response in a situation, what it is to have response ability to respond. until eventually, like in the case of someone like Ma, we're taking in, millions of beings. Who knows? When we're being in a state of able responsiveness,
You're working with a teacher,
we're
so
naturally
but it's the right relationship.
feeling what will be best for other people in our responses to things, and we're being skillful. We're being able in that sense. So when questions come up in your life about the things that generally trigger what we call selfishness, which is really small I-ishness, small selfishness, about the things that make us most nervous, about money and our living situation and our relationships. And these are the places where we usually collapse into a little condensed point of congealed, dense, selfness. When we can really track to what extent we are subtilizing our experience of responsibility, to what extent we naturally think of how our activities are going to affect other people in every situation, even the ones that normally cause us to collapse a little bit, right? So, a situation came up today where the people at Trika House are sick and they couldn't host the teachings. I guess it came up yesterday, really, and the immediate response was, well, everyone will just watch at home. This is a fairly condensed response. The response was, there was no natural response of, we should still host the teachings as a group and bring everybody together. There was sort of a little movement in that direction, but then there was nothing really happened. It wasn't possible to do it easily, so it just got dropped. And then everyone is watching at home on their own in front of their computers. This is a symptom of responsibility not being very subtle. So you can understand your own responsibility from this example. How much are you really feeling for other people in your responses to things? How much, and I'm saying naturally feel. I'm not saying anybody should manufacture anything. We just have to look at how we naturally feel. What do we naturally do at any particular point in our practice? I'm just giving you a way to look at that. Because when we are being more response-able, more and more people are included, bigger situations are included. We have a heart connection to others that allows us to feel our continuity with them and want only the very best for other people. It's not a moralistic thing. There's no ethics involved whatsoever. It's not good as opposed to bad, or right as opposed to wrong. It's goodness itself. It's just goodness. It's sweetness. To be able to feel this way and to just naturally respond this way. So this is a more subtle level of responsibility. Again, we have to start from where we are. When we're very worried about ourselves, we're not having this responsibility. Because worrying about ourselves causes us to look so inward that we're not actually experiencing other people. Like anxiety causes that. So sometimes people say, oh, so-and-so is so narcissistic, or so I say that. So-and-so is so selfish, or so-and-so doesn't think of others. That person is generally just anxious about something, or just anxious in general, or so wrapped up in their own emotions and internal processes that it just creates that other people have the experience of them being selfish and narcissistic. They're just having an experience of like, oh. So we want to recognize what our condition is. That's that's a big part of the practice, just recognizing what is our responsibility and how can we be responsible at whatever level we're functioning at. We want to put on, as Juliet said the other day, put on our work boots and get to work at that level of responsibility so we can subtleize and eventually be at a more expansive level of responsibility. That's what I'm going to say today. I hope this is helpful.